Hi. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined for a second sesh after the first keynote. And for those that are new, hello, welcome, thank you so much. It's going to be not quite as fast as the first one. The first one, I realized I had a 10-minute speech, but I actually had a 30 minutes worth of things to say. So I was like, ah! Now I can kind of spread it out a little bit and deliver a proper story. I've traveled a long way to be here. I flew all the way from Australia, arrived yesterday, flying back on Thursday, spending more time in airplanes than I am on the ground. It's a long way. But I've come with a message, and it's a message that all of us, the communities that we work with and ourselves, we have a Ferrari in our pockets, right? These mobile phones, but we're driving them in first gear. And if we can unlock the potential of mobile journalism, of mobile storytelling, we can fundamentally change the way we communicate with people. We can move away from this idea of just focusing on projects, but go back to people themselves and understand what's really going on. My journey into this started right back in 2010. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. I wanted to tell stories of wars and natural disasters, and every organization that I spoke to, and some of you are in this room, I emailed you, you didn't reply, they basically said, you're too have enough experience, we don't have budget. So in 2010, I started hitchhiking on my own from South Africa to Syria, from Durban to Damascus, up the east coast of Africa. And it challenged every misconception I ever had of the continent, right? Like I'd watched Blood Diamond with Leonardo DiCaprio, South African accent. I am Denny Archer, A-R-C-H-E-R. And in fact, the African continent was stories of hope and aspiration. It was some of the fastest growing economies in the world. I saw incredible stories. I never felt afraid at any stage in my entire journey. Far from it. Kind of been the start of my journey. It was learning to become this one-woman or one-man band storyteller, this mojo, this mobile journalist. In this session, you're going to learn a little bit about how to find your mojo. How to find your mojo. And I know your salary and paycheck is way too senior to be the ones on the ground telling stories with mobile devices. But I hope you'll come out of the session with appreciation of the potential and the possibilities so that you can go back to your teams and you can say, hey, we can do this. It's super easy. It's super fast. It's not going to spend any CapEx budget, and we're going to massively be able to scale the amount of video content we produce, right? At no cost, simply by inspiring your team to start thinking about mobile stories on their devices. I didn't really introduce myself in the last session, but I am a co-founder of a company called Scene. We are a publisher. We tell stories about people creating positive change. We have 10 shows on Snapchat. We have 5 million subscribers. And I'll just give you a quick idea of kind of how we work. We aspire to be the world's most immersive storytelling company. I really believe if you can immerse somebody in an experience, you can create more empathy and understanding, right? You can create a real human connection. And I'm going to be speaking a little bit about immersiveness, and you'll see my crazy sunglasses a little bit later. But this is an idea of what we do. This is an idea of some of the shows that we publish and kind of why we exist, to help communities feel seen. Whoops. Let's try that with audio. Are you guys getting audio in the back? No, not you. I know you're not getting audio. I mean, the team in the. Let me try it with another video just to confirm it's. Let's see if you're getting audio on this one. I know there's no audio. We can come back to it. I will talk for a little while. I'm going to keep playing this while you guys try. So, effectively, I want you guys to think about a massive iceberg. Team as well in the back, I can also airdrop this to you if we don't get audio through the HDMI. Imagine a massive iceberg, and that iceberg represents all of the mobile footage that exists in the world today, right? Billions and billions of people with mobile phones telling stories. At the moment, only the stuff at the very top of the iceberg is being seen, the stuff that's going viral. And that's generally one of two things. It's either the really funny stuff, like Chewbacca Mom or somebody having a fail video, or it's the really fucked up stuff. It's the terror attacks, it's the really negative stuff. That's the stuff that's bubbling to the top of our social media feeds, above the surface of this iceberg. But Below the surface is amazing stories. That's the really good stuff. And nobody's tapping into it. And the idea is if you can just lift those stories up, if you can train people to tell their own stories, you can suddenly get access to infinite amounts of content. My organization, Scene, it's a cool video, even with the audio off, I'll play it again just so you guys can work out the audio if you can. We produce 1,000 videos a year. It's massively scalable. It's a really, really simple way to produce stories all over the world at incredibly low costs, simply by enabling communities to tell their own stories. That's the iceberg I'm speaking to you about. I want you to think about 3 key pillars. And I used to work at CNN International. This is how they broke down their social media strategy, and it's what I've taken forward into our own company. And that's thinking about your social strategy in terms of social discovery, which is how to find amazing stories, social publishing, which is how to produce those stories, put them together, and social engagement, which is how to make those stories go viral. Often, we spend way too much time only thinking about the second one. We're like, oh, what piece of content are we going to make? Not enough time thinking about up the top, what kind of story are we going to find, and certainly not enough time on number 3, which is how are we going to share this story, how are we going to spread it. So I'm going to break down this workshop in those 3 sections, starting with social discovery. So when we started to scale, I mentioned some of you earlier, we started the pandemic with 2 staff. My wife and I, we're now 100 staff, so we've grown very quickly. When that happens, you suddenly have a bunch of new folks, and they don't really know what's going on. And we were going from like 1 piece of content a week to, as I said, like 1,000 videos a year. So we massively increased the amount of videos. And in doing that, we started doing everything. I started doing funny cat videos. I was doing stuff on UFC fighting, and our audience plummeted. They absolutely nosedived because we totally lost touch with who we are. And it's the same thing when you're thinking about your digital strategy, and specifically video. You should have a checklist. We are this and this and this, and we are not this and this and this. And all of your field producers, your people on the ground, mark their stories against that checklist and say, yes, does it tick all these boxes? This is the kind of story that we tell at World Vision. This is the kind of story that we tell at UNHCR. So for us, our checklist is stuff like this. Is it factually accurate? Can we verify it? Is it unique, right? We're not going to try and compete with the BBC or those kinds of folks to be the first to deliver a story. Is it an unheard voice? Is it educational? Like, it's really important to have that TIL moment. Today I learned. Today I learned something. Hey? Yeah, let me do that. I'll just airdrop this whole thing while I'm...
Yeah, it's going to be the MacBook 122.
MacBook 1... Will you steal me 5 more minutes?
I don't have
Do you guys mind? No? MacBook 1...
FVP 12.
We've got lots of MacBooks.
So many MacBooks, and not...
I love working in rich countries where the problem is that there's too many MacBooks. There's 162 of them, obviously, because 161 was taken. Let me, I'll click on all of these, and somebody will get my presentation. One of you have just been the proud winner of a keynote presentation about mobile journalism. I think that can do that in the background. I don't actually care. I can speak this out. If it comes, it comes. Educational. It's got to have a today I learned moment. If your piece of content doesn't have an educational today I learned, and that's a Reddit acronym, what are we doing here? You've got to quiz your teams on that. Relevance. Who are you relevant to? So from our audience, we're talking to 13 to 24-year-olds in the US. Any story that we get pitched, is it relevant to a 13 to 24-year-old in the US? And finally, is it constructive? I don't just want to focus on problems in the world. I want to look at solutions, organizations, and ways that we're making it better. If I had to summarize a good video into 3 things, this is what we call the banger video format. It needs to have these 3 things. And when I'm working with NGOs and NPOs and partners, and we're working on stories together, we'll push really hard to make sure we hit these 3 things, because otherwise it's really difficult for us to make sure that video reaches millions of people. 1, is it visual? And when I say visual, I mean, is it truly visual? Like, for example, we were working recently on a story on the African continent that were blind. Does that sound visual to you, blind cyclists? That's what I thought. It's not. A blind cyclist looks a lot like a normal cyclist. Like, there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of visually, right? So is the story visual? Is there a bunch of verbs? 2, do people actually give a shit? Like, do they care? How do we make people care? How do we make the story matter? And the third one, the really interesting one for social, is it debatable? Right? Right now in the US, Roe v. Wade, there's so many gun reform, there's so many debatable topics. Debatable topics are really good for digital, right? It engages audiences, we have conversations, because otherwise we're just talking to ourselves, right? So ask yourself these 3 questions. In terms of social discovery tools to help you find amazing stories, there's a bunch. CrowdTangle is amazing. CrowdTangle will look, it's owned by Facebook, it's free. It'll look at your competitive set, at other people in your space around your page, and it will tell you if their content is under or overperforming compared to what they normally publish. That's really useful data. Reddit, described as the front page of the internet, a lot of memes, GIFs go viral on Reddit long before you find them on other platforms. Facebook Live, you can find really cool stories there. TweetDeck, anyone using Twitter? Twitter gives you one feed. TweetDeck will allow you to have multiple feeds at one time. So just say you're working on reproductive rights in Uganda. You could say, show me every time people use the word Uganda and reproductive rights, and that's my feed for that. So you almost have like a dashboard that's always presently updating with that kind of stuff. In terms of verification tools, also incredibly important, right? If you're working with citizens and communities and they're telling stories, you've got to be able to fact check and verify them. I'm not going to go through these in great length, but these are a couple of tools that are really useful. I don't think we have audio, so I'm going to skip past these. These are just examples of some of the stories that we've produced out of Ukraine covering the war. All kinds of stories from communities. It's important to emphasize that these are not random pieces of user-generated content that you find online. This is identifying a character discovery and empowering them to tell a story, giving them skills, training, augmented reality lenses and effects that assist them in the storytelling process. This particular story was about Black African migrants that were struggling to get out of Ukraine, right? Racism when they arrived at the border with Poland, etc. Okay, so that was my first chapter, which is social discovery, finding amazing stories. Now we want to talk about social publishing. How do you actually create those stories, put them together? Has anyone read the YouTube Creators Playbook? No? Okay, so basically you can think about 3 types of content in your video strategy. And those 3 types of content are hygiene, hub, and hero. Your hygiene content is the stuff you publish every day on your social platforms. It's engaging your existing audience. It's your Twitter, it's your Instagram stories, it's your newsletter, it's, you know, the stuff that you're doing on a daily basis. Does that stuff bring in 1 million new followers? No, probably not, right? But it engages your existing community. So that's your hub content. You might do 7 of those pieces a week. That's your hygiene content. Your hub content is highly searchable and evergreen. So for example, 5 things you need to know about the Sahel crisis, right? Highly searchable, evergreen, will be relevant for a while to come. People can find it out. It's hygiene, it's informational content. That you might do, say, once a week. It's an explainer piece. So for example, hygiene in the bottom column in the context of this summit would be somebody tweeting about what I'm speaking about. The hub content would be someone saying, top 5 things you need to know about developmental storytelling from what I learned at Devex, right? It's the explainer piece. The hero content, that's your documentary series. That's your investigative piece. That's the piece that you're spending a lot of time on. You might put out 1 a month. Hopefully that goes really viral, right? So this just gives you an idea about how you strategize around your digital content strategy around social publishing. Because otherwise, most communications teams think everything is a hero piece, right? And then they're surprised when everything doesn't go viral. It's like, no, you've got to plan for it. Into the basics of filming with mobile devices if you're working with communities that are doing this. So first up, orientation. Not your sexual orientation, your mobile orientation. So the worst thing we want to see is somebody who's filmed half a video like this and the other half like this, right? That's kind of like when my mom sends me videos. Like, it's all over the place. If you are filming vertical, stay vertical. If you're filming landscape, stay landscape. Which one should we use? Depends which platforms you're working for, right? If you're working on formats that are lean back experiences. When I'm watching Netflix, am I leaning forward or leaning back? You're leaning back, right? If I'm watching YouTube, leaning back. What about if I'm on Instagram stories or Twitter? Lean forward, right? You're engaging. That's how we think about, who's messaging me? That's how we think about, this is really risky. That's how we think about, I'm actually going to put this on Do Not Disturb. That's how we think about vertical versus landscape, right? Lean forward, vertical, lean back, landscape. But stick to one orientation throughout. I would highly recommend a focus, and this sector doesn't do enough of it on vertical. Vertical is where it's at. Like the big growth markets right now are Instagram Reels, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube Shorts. It's all vertical content. It's a huge, huge opportunity. And if you're not doing vertical right now, you're potentially missing out on a great opportunity. Moving along. Audio quality. This is where you're going to come undone. If you're working with citizens and your communities to tell stories, the visuals we can fix. If it's shaky, we can stabilize it. If the colors are bad, we can fix it. If the audio is there is nothing I can do to repair that in post. Like nothing. It's gone. Bad audio is bad. How do we fix that? Simple stuff. Just teach communities to avoid being next to a tractor or air conditioning unit when they're filming their videos. Teach communities that if I'm filming and interviewing you here, my mic is far away. Get close. It's really, really simple. You know, everyone has a pair of, even in the most marginalized communities, everyone has a pair of earphones, right, with a wire. That earphones has a microphone on it. That microphone is a really effective way to do interviews. They can actually interview each other with that microphone, with your earphones. So audio is really important. Give it attention. Lighting. Empower communities to basically say, where's the light? Okay, light's here. Make sure it's behind the camera. Where's the sun? Sun's there. Make sure it's behind the camera. That simple. Rule of thirds, that kind of stuff, a little bit traditional. Framing. If you are interviewing somebody who's talking about sex education in Zimbabwe, I want to see things that are related to sex education behind that individual. If I was, for example, this is Aurelia here. If I was filming Aurelia here, well, one, shooting down on her, she looks weak, I look strong, but two, there's no context, right? I can't see what's happening here. Framing is about saying, I'm going to be here. Way more information, right? I can see we're in a cohort, I can see people are in masks. What is going on, by the way? America was never this serious about masks, like ever. Like when the rest of the world were like, we should wear masks, you guys were like, no. And now you're wearing masks. What is going on? A variety of shots. Citizens often shoot everything wide. They don't get details. They shoot everything wide. So for example, coming back to Aurelia here, a citizen will shoot everything here. They'll be like, this is the water pump, this is our project, blah, 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 blah. What we actually want to do is come in close. I want to get details. I want to see the back of the phone. That's a cool case. You want to get those details. Aurelia works on my team, so yeah. And sequences. Citizens don't think in terms of sequences. They just don't think that way. But we need sequences to produce compelling video. If you make a cup of coffee, what's the first thing that you do? Well, I know you guys, you go to Starbucks. But most of us will fill up a kettle. Do Americans even use kettles? Yeah? Yeah? Coffee machines. There's no kettles here. Well, first you just fill up your kettle, then you get your mug out, and etc. There's a series of steps, a sequence that happens. Same thing with video, right? You need to think about a sequence of events. If a community are drilling a borehole, there's a sequence. Step 1 should be a really dry ground. Step 2 should be identifying where to find the borehole. Step 3 should be preparing the drill. And we need to get communities to think in terms of those sequences, because otherwise you just end up with a video of the finished product. And it's like, what do we make with that? We don't have enough here to make a video. Here's some really cool video editing apps that I use, just to run you guys through them. Starting from the top bottom left, LumaFusion is quite expensive. It's like $20. I don't get paid by any of these folks. Neither do I get paid by Devex. But LumaFusion is like $20. It's a video editing app. It's very good. WeVideo is free, also pretty good. Quick is owned by GoPro. It's like a monthly fee. That does really short explainer videos. KineMaster works on Android and iOS. It's a linear video editing app. PowerDirect is very similar. iMovie is free if you're on an iPhone. Pretty decent, but not so good if you want to export verticals and other formats. And Splice is another explainer video editing app. I don't have audio, but nonetheless, I'll show you how easy it is for me to produce a video. If I was doing a video of you guys right now, I'd basically start with a piece of the camera. I'd be like, hey, I'm doing this workshop here with the amazing folks at Devex. Say hello, everyone. I'm going to show them how to do overlay, like show them what a white chair looks like, show them what people on phones look like, and show them what masks look like. So I've obviously spoken about the white chair, so I'd get a shot of the white chair. Boop, 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 boop. I've spoken about phones, so I'd get a shot of somebody on their phone, like Aurelia, like so. And I've spoken about masks, so we get, this is a colorful mask. Cool mask. All right, so if I was going to edit something like this, I would basically take it into, and apologies, you'll have to use your imagination for audio, but you get the idea. I'd take it into a video editing app like this, and I'd basically start with where I was speaking to camera. That's the first thing I would lay down, right? So there's me speaking to camera. You guys all say hello. I then speak about the white chair, so I would overlay the white chair on top of that. I then spoke about the masks, or I think I spoke about the phone next, and then I spoke about the masks. And that's it. Like, that's the end. Like, that's basically a video produced. That's, if any of you are familiar with video editing, that's a timeline. You've got your B-roll on top. I might add some music at the bottom. But you've basically very, very quickly been able to produce a pretty decent quality video, right? 2 channels, add some subtitles, add some music, and you're away. That's your finished video. I'm still speaking below this bit, right? Professional quality video on a mobile device is super easy. All right. Continuing down my list, social engagement, how to make stories go viral, right? So you've found an amazing story using social discovery techniques. You've produced the amazing story by shooting and editing it with a mobile device and using all those techniques. Now, how do you make it go viral? The first thing is you need to really think about how that story is structured. It is so important to optimize for the opening 3 seconds and even more so for the opening frame. Our generation are like, they're too quick to swipe. They're too quick to move on. It's like they're on Tinder but watching your content, right? And there's Kim Kardashian and funny cat videos, and you want me to watch something really important on the SDGs. You need to grab my attention in the opening 3 seconds with something incredibly visual or incredibly provocative right up top. There's no time for a logo of your brand. There's no time for, hey, I'm Jane from this organization or that organization. Get straight into the most important part of your story right up the top. It's so, so important if you're going to grab attention is to do it in the opening 3 seconds. So live video is a great option as well if you're working in terms of engagement. It's really underutilized in the sector, and it's got huge potential. To smash through 10 tips for live video really quickly, the first one is to create suspense, right? Why do we watch sports? Why do we watch Wimbledon live? It's because you don't know who's going to win, hopefully, unless somebody's rigged it. But suspense is important. It's the same thing with a live video. There's no point of doing a live unless there's some form of suspense, unless there's some kind of differentials of what might happen at the end of that piece of content. The second is engagement. It's not television. If you're live on Instagram, it's a two-way conversation. Use that comment section engagement to drive what's happening in the video. Somebody could be asking questions and you can respond to it in the video, etc. If you're at that intersection of suspense and engagement, that's the really good stuff. That's really where it gets interesting. The third is get out of the studio. You don't need to shoot live videos for socials at your office. If you're talking about a region around the world, go live at that region. Enable that community to go live themselves. 4, change the format. It doesn't have to be static reporters, hey, we're live here. You could do it in a car. You could do it on the back of a motorbike. There's so many different ways you could go live. 5, schedule. Let your audience know well in advance that you're going live. If you're going live at 5 p.m., let your audience know at 2 p.m., right? Give them an opportunity to be there. 6, good internet is really handy, right? If you have 4G or 5G or Wi-Fi, Another really good option if you're trying to go live from a really remote area is to have 2 phones with 2 different cellular networks and hotspot one onto the other. And then on the phone that you're going live on, enable Wi-Fi assist in the settings. And the phone will basically say, hey, I'm going to either take the Wi-Fi or the cellular, whichever one's stronger. Next, introduce the subject often. On our videos, we have pretty good watch time. We get about 1 minute, 1 minute 20 watch time, 30, 40% of the narrative. On a live video, our watch time is like 7 seconds. People are coming and going all the time. It's a bit like radio. You know, when you're listening to the radio, they're constantly, hey, if you're just joining us, we're talking about this and this and this. That's my American accent. Reset the stage. Continually reintroduce what this topic is. Hey, if you're just joining us, we're talking about food security. If you're just joining us, continually reintroduce. Where possible, try and add text. The majority of the audience are not listening to the audio. It's where you'll find us subtitling all of our videos, but even in live content, you can create boards and that kind of stuff. Time. Don't be afraid to go long. Go for at least 10 minutes. Give people an opportunity to be there. And finally, be cautious. When you're going live, your audience is seeing it for the first time as you. I was once in South Africa when xenophobic uprisings were happening, right? Foreign nationals were being set on fire with tires. And we raided this hostel with the police of these men that were suspected of carrying out these crimes. And I went live on social media. And effectively, they were pulling dudes out of bed and searching them. And we were showing their faces, but they were innocent until proven guilty, right? So you've got to be super, super careful when you're live in terms of what you disclose. Thumbnails are so important. Thumbnails are like 50 or 60% of the battle. You can do the most amazing video, but if you haven't thought about the thumbnails and headlines, you're not going to win. This is a piece I did around this dude called the King of Condoms. Anyone heard of him? He's a cool dude. He's in Kenya. He drives around the informal settlements with like 7,000 condoms in his car. Which headline do you think performed best? Reckon the first one? Yeah, you're totally right. I always wondered whether they thought it was my condoms or his in that picture. In short, one of the things we're really focused on, and I would really emphasize you to remember, if you remember something after meeting us and joining these sessions, the world is moving incredibly fast. Can I grab that bag? Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been wearing cameras on my face every day of my life since 2016, right? Like, these are cameras. But they're not just cameras, they're screens. I have screens in here and information. I can look up and see the weather, directions, whatever, a whole bunch of stuff. By 2030, every single person in this room will be wearing a computer on their face. All of us will. Across the world. And it is an incredible future. I'm really excited about it. We're not going to be looking down at the world. We're not going to be walking around like this. It's not going to be like a casino in your face. It's going to be cool. It's going to be subtle and amazing. That thing turned on. In that future, we're going to create amazing stories which create more empathy and understanding. In order to prepare for that, we have to be making those investments today. It's a huge jump. This whole jump into the metaverse, and you're hearing so many versions of the metaverse, right? Mark Zuckerberg playing poker in space. That's not the interesting metaverse for me. The interesting metaverse for me is our real physical world, our shared space, and how we overlay the internet onto that space. But we have to make those investments today. Augmented reality is that future. It starts with thinking about wearable storytelling. We did this story, for example, with wearables, where we looked at kids with various, this kid had one arm and was playing American football. You then, once you think about capturing through faces, you then think about overlaying information onto the world. So in Cape Town, South Africa, we created an experience where you can walk around with glasses or phone, and colonial statues come to life and start telling you that they were actually racist assholes. So you can basically point your phone at them, and the colonial guy's like, I'm an amazing general. And then the horse was like, no, bro, you're a racist. And this is where storytelling is going. It's a really amazing, beautiful space, and it's going to happen. And it's an amazing space for organizations to start thinking about. We did another one in Boston where we overlaid all of the historical images onto the city. So you could walk around and see the women's suffragette movement. You could walk around and see the first woman to run the Boston Marathon and attempts to pull her off the race. And you could hear poets that are reciting what's happening around you. I created another one where I'm born and raised as a Muslim. My entire life I've prayed in Arabic. I don't understand one word of Arabic. My whole life I'm praying in a language I don't understand. We created an experience where you could see the Quran in English while you're praying, so you understood what was happening. Literally not gimmicky. This is like tangible stuff that is improving lives, has incredible potential, and has so much opportunity in the social good work that you're all doing. We work with so many partners around the world. We work with World Vision, Oxfam, Plan International. All of these organizations support the incredible journalism that we're doing. These are some of the tips that I've given you over the course of this session. Videos, everything. Focus on solutions, train communities, create professional quality user-generated content, develop storytelling toolkits, invest in AR, prepare for wearables, and together we can create a more empathetic and understanding future. Thank you so much for your time.